Mr. Palazzo.
On this vote, the ayes are 180, the nays are 245. The amendment is not agreed to. The unfinished business is the request for a recorded vote on an amendment offered by the gentleman from Nevada, Mr. Heck, on which further proceedings were postponed and on which the noes prevailed by voice vote. The clerk will redesignate the amendment.
Amendment offered by Mr. Heck of Nevada.
A recorded vote has been requested. Those in support of a request for a recorded vote will rise and be counted. A sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 2-minute vote. Thank you.
Denny Heck, Republican of Nevada, with an amendment to the 2014 Homeland Security spending bill that would cut $22 million from the following Homeland Security offices: Undersecretary for Management and the Office of the Chief Financial Officer. It would also reduce some salaries in FEMA and Customs and Border Protection. More amendment debate coming up and amendment votes later this evening. Final passage is likely on Thursday. Also on Thursday on the C-SPAN networks, we'll cover the IRS hearing, the House Oversight hearing, looking at the spending for IRS conferences. That'll be live on C-SPAN 3 and C-SPAN Radio tomorrow morning at 9:30 Eastern. This afternoon, the Associated Press reported that moving quickly to address yet another controversy, the IRS placed 2 officials on administrative leave for accepting free food at a party in a private suite at a lavish IRS conference in 2010, the agency said today. And the suspensions or the officials on leave announced this afternoon. That reporting by the Associated Press. Again, that hearing tomorrow, 9:30 Eastern. That'll be on C-SPAN 3.
156. The noes are 268. The amendment is not agreed to. The unfinished business is the request for a recorded vote on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Garcia, on which further proceedings were postponed and on which the noes prevailed by voice vote. The clerk will redesignate the amendment.
Amendment offered by Mr. Garcia of Florida.
A recorded vote has been requested. Those in support of a request for a recorded vote will rise and be counted. A sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 2-minute vote.
Since early afternoon, the House has been debating the 2014 fiscal year defense authorization, the Homeland Security bill. They're taking a series of amendment votes here, recorded votes. Joe Garcia, Democrat of Florida, with an amendment that would reduce immigration and custom enforcement salaries by $10 million. We expect, it's likely during this series of votes, that they will swear in the new representative from Missouri. Jason Smith won a special election yesterday. He takes the seat of Joanne Emerson, who resigned earlier this year to become the CEO of the National Rural Electric Cooperative. That swearing in expected sometime soon.
The noes are 236. The amendment is not agreed to. For what purpose does the gentleman from Tennessee seek recognition?
Wait. I move that the committee do now rise.
The gentleman from Tennessee is recognized. The gentlemen have a motion.
I move that the committee do now rise.
The question is on the motion that the committee rise. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Accordingly, the committee rises. The Committee on the Whole House on the State of the Union, having had under consideration 2216.
The Chair of the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union reports that the committee has had under consideration H.R. 2217 and has come to no resolution thereon. Placed before the House a communication.
The Honorable the Speaker, House of Representatives. Sir, I have the honor to transmit herewith a scanned copy of a letter received from Ms. Julie A. Allen, Director of Elections and Information Technology, Missouri Secretary of State's Office, indicating that, according to the unofficial returns of the special election held June 4, 2013, the Honorable Jason Smith was elected representative to Congress for the 8th Congressional District, State of Missouri. With best wishes, I am, signed sincerely, Karen L. Haas, Clerk.
The House will be in order. The members will please take their seats. For what purpose does the gentleman from Missouri rise?
Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the gentleman from Missouri, the Honorable Jason T. Smith, be permitted to take the oath of office today. His certificate of election has not arrived, but there is no contest and no question has been raised with regard to his election.
Without objection, so ordered. Will Representative-elect Smith and the Missouri delegation please present themselves in the well of the House? And will all members please rise? And will Representative-elect Smith please raise his right hand? Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you are about to enter, so help you God? Congratulations. You're now a member of the 113th Congress. Without objection, the gentleman from Missouri is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as the co-dean of Missouri's U.S. House delegation, I want to congratulate and extend a warm welcome to my newest colleague, Congressman Jason Smith. Mr. Smith is an attorney, a fourth-generation farmer from southeast Missouri, and he has distinguished himself as one of the youngest Speaker pro tems in the history of the Missouri House. He follows in the footsteps of my dear friend, former Congresswoman Joanne Emerson, who represented Missouri's 8th Congressional District for 17 years. And I know, and we can applaud Joanne. And I know Mr. Smith will continue her legacy of public service, and now I am pleased to yield to my good friend and colleague, Mr. Graves.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to also welcome Mr. Smith to the U.S. House of Representatives. Lacey said that he's a fourth-generation farmer, but he's actually seventh-generation Missourian, and he's been living on the same farm that his great-grandfather once lived in. He graduated from my alma mater, University of Missouri, and he's been involved in agriculture and practicing law. And as a farmer, I don't think we can ever have enough farmers in this body. Mr. Speaker, Missouri is known as the Show Me State, and last night Jason Smith won the special election with over 67% of the vote. And I think that shows that he is truly the representative of the 8th District of the state of Missouri. And it gives me a great deal of pleasure to yield the rest of our time to the gentleman from the 8th District of Missouri, Jason Smith. Jason.
Thank you very much. First, I would like to thank Congressman Clay and also Congressman Graves for your kind remarks, and also the Missouri delegation. Thanks for being here, and it's great to have that support right behind you. You know, less than 18 hours ago, I was standing before friends and family in my small town of Salem, Missouri, and just got elected. We hit the ground running and wanted to make sure that we didn't waste any time to get up here. So all I can say is that I truly look forward to working with every member of this body. There's 435 of us. My goal is to get to know each and every one of you and help move the country forward one step at a time. I know that we're not going to agree on everything, but you know what? We need to find those places that we do agree on the issues and then come together and work for the better. And I think that we can do that. And I look forward to working with the entire chamber, and it's truly an honor and pleasure to represent the fine folks in southeast and south central Missouri, following in the good footsteps of my friend Joanne Emerson and also the late Bill Emerson. Thank you all very much, and I look forward to working with you.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. Under Clause 5D of Rule 20, the Chair announces to the House that in light of the administration of the oath to the gentleman from Missouri, the whole number of the House is now 435. Pursuant to House Resolution 243 and Rule 18, the Chair declares the House and the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union for the further consideration of H.R. 2217. Will the gentlewoman from Florida, Ms. Ross-Lehtinen, kindly resume the chair.
The House is in the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union for further consideration of H.R. 2217, which the clerk will report by title.
A bill making appropriations for the Department of Homeland Security for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2014, and for other purposes.
When the Committee of the Whole rose earlier today, an amendment offered by the gentleman from California, Mr. Swalwell, has been disposed of, and the bill had been read through page 41, line 2. The unfinished business is the request for a recorded vote on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Deutsch, on which further proceedings were postponed and on which the noes prevailed by voice vote. The clerk will redesignate the amendment.
Amendment offered by Mr. Deutsch of Florida.
A recorded vote has been requested. Those in support of the request for a recorded vote will rise and be counted. A sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their vote by electronic device pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 8. This will be a 2-minute vote. What was that number?
Jason Smith is sworn in. He won the special election in Missouri yesterday. taking the seat of Joanne Emerson, who resigned earlier this year to become head of the National Rural Electric Cooperative. She held the Bible there during the swearing-in on the House floor. They're now a full House, 435 members, 234 Republicans, 201 Democrats. This is an amendment to the 2014 Homeland Security Spending Bill, which the House has been working on throughout the day. Ted Deutsch of Florida with an amendment striking the provision in the bill that mandates that Immigration and Customs Enforcement maintain a minimum of 34,000 detention beds. More debate coming up, another round of amendment votes this evening. Final passage is likely Thursday morning.
vote, the ayes are 190, the nays are 232. The amendment is not agreed to. The committee will be in order. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Illinois seek recognition?
Speaker, I rise to strike the last word for the purpose of a colloquy.
The gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes.
Madam Speaker, a few days ago, a new report by the Department of Homeland Security Inspector General made recommendations that could save taxpayers.
Is not in order. The gentlelady will suspend. The gentleman is correct. The committee is not in order. The gentlelady is recognized.
Madam Speaker, a few days ago, a new report by the Department of Homeland Security Inspector General made recommendations that could save taxpayers $126 million and improve border security. The Department of Homeland Security uses 62 H-60 helicopters operated by the Coast Guard and the Customs and Border Protection agencies for mission support, primarily for law enforcement and search and rescue missions. These aircraft are being converted to add 15 years of additional operational life. The report found that while the Coast Guard properly managed its conversion program, a similar conversion program at Customs and Border Protection led to significant cost overruns and delays that could ground as many as 9 of the helicopters beginning in 2014. The IG made what I think is a very good recommendation. Have the Coast Guard Aviation Logistics Center conduct the remaining Customs and Border Protection H-60 conversions. According to the IG, the Coast Guard could convert the remaining helicopters much faster and at a lower price tag than CBP. This could save the Department of Homeland Security about $126 million and speed up the time that the aircraft would be operational and patrolling our borders by 7 years. I was disappointed to hear that rather than implementing this common sense taxpayer dollar savings recommendation in this time of scarce resources, the Department of Homeland Security is choosing instead to conduct a cost-benefit analysis. I think this
House is not in order.
The gentleman is correct. The committee is not in order. The gentlelady deserves to be heard. The gentlelady is recognized.
I think this delay is unnecessary. At a time when the Department of Homeland Security law enforcement personnel are facing furloughs, this is a missed opportunity to save precious funds and to meet the critical goal of improving our border security. I yield to the chairman.
I appreciate the gentlelady bringing the IG report to our attention. As Ranking Member Price can attest, the committee has a long bipartisan history supporting robust funding for the H-60 conversions. In fact, the bill includes funds sufficient to completely recap 2 H-60 helicopters. Though I'm unaware CBP has some reservations about the conclusions in the IG report, I'm a proponent of not paying top dollar when it isn't necessary. Consequently, I'd like to have an opportunity to dig in these claims before drawing any particular conclusions. With that, I yield back.
Will the gentleman yield?
Yes.
I thank the gentleman.
The time?
Will the gentlelady yield?
I yield to the
I'd like
ranking
to
member.
express my agreement with what Mr. Dent just said. These aircraft are absolutely vital to mission success for Border Patrol agents and air and marine personnel. if there are better, faster, cheaper ways to make these conversions, we need to know about them. So I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Ranking.
Would the gentlelady yield?
I yield to Mr. Chairman.
Again, I thank the gentlelady for raising this issue. Clearly, she has some personal experience flying these aircraft, and I'm grateful for her service, and I yield back.
I thank the Chairman and the Ranking Member for your attention to this matter, and I hope that we can work together to ensure that management of this program is improved. I yield back my time.
The gentlelady yields back the balance of her time. For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina seek recognition? The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Let me first begin by thanking the chairman of the subcommittee and the ranking member for their leadership on this committee. I've watched you over the years, and the two of you work together so well, and I just thank you so very much. Over the years, I've led an effort here in the House to recognize a group of Americans who served our country during World War II. We refer to them as the Merchant Marines, and they have not been properly recognized for their service, and I'm very sad about that. We're quickly running out of time to recognize the few remaining Americans that stood up for our country by serving as Merchant Marines when our country needed them the most during World War II. Without weapons or formal training, many risked their lives, and tragically too many gave their lives in defense of our great nation during the Second World War. For those that are still living, we must not let their efforts go unrecognized while we still have a chance. The recent passing of Senator Lautenberg earlier this week, and the last remaining World War II veteran in the Senate, is a strong reminder that our time is running out to recognize those that are lesser known but still contributed significantly to the World War II effort. Few have given more to this country than Senator Lautenberg, and I pray that his family has peace in the weeks and months to come. He will be missed. Because I believe it is only fair to recognize Merchant Marines who served during this war, I reintroduced H.R. 1288, the World War II, the WW2 Merchant Mariner Service Act. To date, I've been joined by 81 of my colleagues from both sides of the aisle in support of this bill, and I encourage all my colleagues to co-sponsor the legislation that costs nearly nothing. This bill would award veteran status and limited benefits to a segment of the World War II Merchant Marine and that has gone unrecognized. These men and women operated tugboats and barges in the territorial seas of the United States, transporting raw materials and weapons and troops that sustained the war effort. Though most of these individuals operated domestically, their duties were not without risk. A tugboat, Menominee, was sunk by a German U-boat on March 31, 1942, about 9 miles off the coast of Virginia, causing the death of 16 of the 18 mariners that served aboard. I acknowledge that a point of order would be raised if I was to offer this legislation as an amendment today. However, the legislation before us does address funding that is utilized in the support of our Coast Guard and Merchant Marines, and I could not forego the opportunity to address the dire need to rightly recognize the efforts of these individuals before it's too late. I thank you and my colleagues for allowing me time to speak on this very important issue. I strongly encourage my colleagues to join me in co-sponsoring H.R. 1288 in passing the legislation so these remaining Americans can gain the recognition they deserve. I thank you. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back the remainder of his time. For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina seek recognition? The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Madam Chair, I rise to bring attention to an issue of critical importance regarding our national security. Our cyber and informational warfare doctrines do not pay enough attention to the likelihood that adversaries seeking to cripple the U.S. critical infrastructure could quickly turn to an EMP attack or electromagnetic pulse. This nation's electrical grid is incredibly vulnerable and could be crippled by such an attack. The resulting blackout and EMP damage would quickly move beyond the electric grid. Other systems could collapse, leading to a failure of other critical infrastructures, such as communications, transportation, banking, and finance, as well as the transportation of food and water. As I've traveled around my district, I've heard from several constituents and experts that see this threat as ever present. While technology has made society more efficient, it has also made us more vulnerable by permeating nearly every aspect of our culture and sustains modern civilization in the lives of millions. The assessment that the U.S. is vulnerable to an EMP attack is based on the work of the Congressional EMP Commission that analyzed this threat for nearly a decade from 2001 to 2008. The Congressional Strategic Posturing Commission and several other U.S. government studies arrived at similar conclusions and collectively represent a scientific and strategic consensus that nuclear EMP attack upon the United States is a very real threat. I applaud Chairman Rogers and the Appropriations Committee for finding ways to prioritize spending so that the National Protection and Programs Directorate, along with similar programs, are able to continue their necessary work. I hope they will continue to engage with academic institutions and private organizations to find better, more cost-effective solutions to protecting this nation's critical infrastructure and our way of life. Madam Chair, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. For what purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey seek recognition?
Madam Speaker,
the gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Madam Speaker, I move to strike the last word. I rise to express my support for the Urban Area Security Initiative Nonprofit Security Grant Program. The Nonprofit Security Program, administered by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, provides critical support to nonprofit organizations at high risk of terrorist attack. This is not a theoretical threat. This is a real threat. A string of anti-Semitic hate crimes took place just 2 years ago, targeting synagogues in Bergen County, New Jersey. I represent. These heinous acts culminated in arson when a firebomb was thrown through the window of an Orthodox Jewish temple, the residence of a rabbi, his wife, his 5 children, and his father. Thankfully, the rabbi and his family escaped serious injury in this attack, and local authorities have arrested the suspects and are in the process of bringing them to justice. Other events across the country have shown the continuing need for these grants as well. Last year, a gunman killed 6, wounded 4, in a mass shooting at a Sikh temple in Oak Creek, Wisconsin. A security guard was tragically killed several years ago at the Holocaust Museum here in Washington by a Holocaust denier and white supremacist. Crimes are not being investigated by white supremacists in this country, just as an aside thought. These are just a handful of the examples showing the vulnerability of nonprofit organizations to attack. The Nonprofit Security Grant Program was designed precisely to allow at-risk nonprofit organizations such as houses of worship, community centers to protect themselves from these types of tragedies by acquiring and installing equipment to secure against potential attacks. These capital improvements include upgrading security measures such as installing alarms, barriers, cameras, or controlled entry systems. In fiscal year 2011, the year during which these terrible events took place in Bergen County, the Nonprofit Security Grant Program was allocated $19 million. For the past 2 years, this amount has been reduced by nearly half to $10 million, despite the ongoing need for this assistance. If we can't protect our houses of worship, what can we protect? The program is funded out of the Department of Homeland Security State and Local Programs account and allows the Secretary discretion to allocate this funding as she sees fit, or she sees fit, who's over there. I call upon the Secretary to allocate at least $15 million to the Nonprofit Security Grant Program as a step towards restoring adequate funding to this vital program. Although I hope that we can bring this funding back to 2011 level, beyond, $15 million should be the baseline level of funding these vital programs. I also believe that the Nonprofit Security Grant Program should receive its own dedicated funding, rather than competing with other important initiatives for a small share of the Department's state and local programs' dollars. I urge my colleagues to support the Nonprofit Security Grant Program in order to ensure that these nonprofit organizations, which serve as the heart of our communities, receive the protection they need. Madam Speaker, let me just add one other thing, and that is it reduces a tremendous amount of anxiety at these houses of worship, and I mentioned a few religions here just now, but I can cite others, reduces the anxiety of being safe even where you sleep or even where you worship. Now, we had the right idea. This was a bipartisan idea. in 2010, 2011, and before that. Why can't we do the right thing? It's not that much money. It will help a lot of institutions to protect themselves, especially when you put in a camera or the other things that I mentioned. It makes people feel a lot more relaxed, and it reduces anxiety. I hope that we can do this. I know, Madam Speaker, and I'm sorry if I'm appealing to you directly, which I am. Madam Speaker, you understand this program very, very well. I would solicit your support for this, and I think it's very important because it's going to stop terrorism in this form. I mean, this gentleman was sleeping with his family, the rabbi, and the bomb came in through the window, was thrown up to the second floor, exploded. I mean, can you imagine the trauma for those children? I apologize for directing my attention to you because you know about these things, and I'm asking you to be helpful to me. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The gentleman that yields back the balance of his time. Who seeks recognition? The gentleman will suspend. The clerk. I have it, but it's not working. The clerk will read, and we will get to the point in the bill where the gentleman can present his amendment.
Page 41, line 3, Emergency Management Performance Grants, $350 million. Radiological Emergency Preparedness Program, aggregate charges shall not be less than 100% of the amounts anticipated by the Department for its Radiological Emergency Preparedness Program for the next fiscal year.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
I ask unanimous consent that the excuse me, that the remainder of the bill through page 52, line 19, be considered as read, printed in the record, and open to amendment at any point.
Is there an objection to the gentleman's request? Without objection, so ordered. Are there any amendments to that section? For what purpose does the gentleman seek recognition?
I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will read.
Page 52, line 20. Acquisitions, construction, improvements, and related expenses, $30,885,000 to remain available until September 30th, 2018. Science and technology, management and administration, $129 million. Research, development, acquisition, and operations, $1,096,488,000.
Madam Speaker.
What purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment offered by Mr. Bishop of New York. Page 54, line 3, after the dollar amount, insert reduced by $404 million. Page 54, line 9, after the dollar amount, insert reduced by $404 million. Page 93, line 9, after the dollar amount, insert increased by $404 million.
The gentleman from New York is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My amendment is very simple. It strikes the $404 million included for the National Bio and Agro Defense Facility, known as NBAF, planned for Manhattan, Kansas, and uses those funds to reduce the deficit. I continue to voice two vitally important concerns with NBAF: safety and cost. As many have noted in the past, putting a laboratory that will study the most virulent and harmful animal diseases known in the heart of cattle country and in an area that is the frequent victim of violent tornadoes is a needless risk to an $80 billion a year industry, and especially when the safety of that lab is still in question. While supporters of this project will testify to NBAF's safety, this claim is not supported by the two risk evaluations conducted by the National Academy of Sciences research arm, the National Research Council. These risk evaluations studied site-specific assessments conducted by the Department of Homeland Security. In its review of DHS's first study, the NRC found that the risk of foot and mouth disease release in the nation's heartland was 70% over a 50-year period. Furthermore, the cost of a release of foot and mouth disease is estimated at between $9 billion and $50 billion. In June 2012, the NRC found that the department's second risk assessment relied on, quote, questionable and inappropriate assumptions, close quote, in calculating risk to determine that NBAF posed near non-existent safety risks to surrounding areas. The same report could not verify DHS's results due to the, quote, methods and data being unevenly or poorly presented, close quote. If the department's own safety assessment throw into question the safety and security of this new facility, how can we be certain that a billion-dollar project will not pose significant security threats to Americans living nearby? The NRC findings are not a resounding endorsement by any stretch. In addition to these significant safety concerns, NBAF's cost is alarming. Initially, $451 million was budgeted for its construction. Today, the price tag is a staggering $1 billion. It can hardly be considered fiscally responsible to spend more than double the initial amount to build a massive research facility only to duplicate research activities currently performed by other existing facilities. More cost-effective solutions must be considered to meet the nation's agro-defense research needs, including the expansion of existing facilities around the country. Alternative options to NBAF do exist. A July 2012 NRC study looked at 3 separate futures for the nation's biosecurity needs and clearly demonstrates that even without NBAF, as currently designed, those needs can be adequately filled by existing facilities. Specifically, one option includes continuing the exemplary work already being conducted at the Plum Island Animal Disease Center while leveraging out the BSL-4 facilities to other existing facilities. This option would represent a significant savings while ensuring that current research needs are met. The NRC studies reaffirm my concerns, as well as concerns of many in the agricultural community, that the unknowns are too many, the risks are too great, the price tag too high to justify going forward with this construction at this time. Let me close with this. This NBAF project is a boondoggle. We don't even have a shovel in the ground yet, and already the cost has gone up by 250%. It is not needed. A very reputable organization, that is to say the NRC, has asserted a perfectly reasonable and vastly less expensive alternative exists, and we have scores and scores of infrastructure needs, much, much more urgent, that we are not addressing. I urge my colleagues to vote yes on this amendment, support my amendment, reduce our deficit by $404 million. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Madam Chair, I rise in opposition to the amendment.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Madam Chairman, I do rise in opposition to this amendment, and I'm certainly sympathetic with the predicament of the gentleman from New York, and he's doing his best to represent his district, but this amendment would cut funding for the National Bio and Agro-Defense Facility, or the NBAF, in Manhattan, Kansas, an essential research center for human and animal pathogens, by $404 million, and increase funding research, development, and innovation by an equivalent amount. This bill has already cut funding by $310 million from the President's request of $714 million. The amount provided in the bill, $404 million, is the amount needed in order to obtain the Kansas cost share and begin construction. I believe Kansas is prepared to offer $202 million in support of this project. Again, and while I understand the gentleman's local district concern, and he's a strong advocate for his district, this amendment is, in fact, short-sighted. This horse is already out of the barn, so to speak. We have an immediate need to build up our capacity for research in the pathogens that afflict animals in our food chain and, by extension, human beings. The Undersecretary of DHS Science and Technology herself has testified the threat of biological attack through our large and vulnerable food chain is a top priority. She has confirmed that NBAF is required to meet this threat. She's also testified that Plum Island, which is in the gentleman's district, of course, cannot meet this need. Yet this amendment would freeze this effort. The amendment would stall a program needed to address a serious known risk. I urge opposition to the amendment. We need to get this facility up and running in Kansas, and at this time I would yield back.
Gentleman yields back the balance of his time. For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina seek recognition?
Madam Chairman, I move to strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Madam Chairman, I rise in opposition to the amendment offered by my friend from New York. the amendment that would eliminate funding in the bill for constructing the National Bio and Agro Defense Facility, or NBAF. I supported a similar amendment offered by the gentleman last year, but the circumstances, I believe, have changed decisively. Last year, the administration did not request funding for NBAF for fiscal 2013. We were still waiting on the results of a National Academy of Sciences review of options for meeting the nation's animal disease research needs, and on the results of a separate National Academy review of the Department's updated risk assessment for NBAF. Last June, the National Academy released a report on DHS's updated risk assessment, concluding that the Department has made substantial improvements compared to its first risk assessment, and that the so-called 65% design phase plans for the facility itself appear to be sound and in conformance with international standards. Further, last July, a separate National Academy of Sciences report made clear that the existing animal disease research facility on Plum Island is not an option for meeting the nation's needs, and that a new facility with a BSL-4 laboratory is required. This is precisely the capability that the new NBAF facility will provide. Now, the two studies also made clear that critical work must continue. Notably, the National Academy of Science review determined that the Department had likely underestimated some types of risk while overestimating others. The Department disputes some of these assessments, but even acknowledging that DHS must continue to improve its risk methodology and response planning before the NBAF facility becomes fully operational, we should not wait any longer to begin constructing the new facility, which we now know is securely and safely designed. The longer we wait, the more costly its construction will be, and the more costly it will be to continue to maintain the Plum Island facility. We also must consider the cost of further delaying the availability of a biosafety level 4 facility, which the NAS, DHS, and other stakeholders are fully convinced we need. So I believe the funding provided in the appropriations bill is timely and needed, and I urge members to oppose the amendment. And I yield back.
The gentleman yields back the remainder of his time. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Kansas seek recognition?
Move to strike the last word.
The gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. After an exhaustive review, the Department of Homeland Security chose Manhattan, Kansas as the site for the new BSL-4 Bio-Agro Defense Facility. And this will be the only such facility capable of researching large animals in the United States. The construction of this cutting-edge facility must move forward quickly so we can safely conduct critical research to develop vaccines and countermeasures in order to protect the public and our livestock from the threats of devastating diseases. Not only will the NBAF accelerate America's ability to protect ourselves, our food supply, and the agriculture economy from biological threats, it will also be the world's premier animal health research facility and further solidify our nation's place as the international leader in animal health. The NBAF is needed to replace the obsolete and increasingly expensive Plum Island Animal Disease Center. This lab was built in the 50s and has reached the end of its life. The facility does not contain the necessary biosafety level to meet the NBAF research requirements, and it never will. Any attempts to upgrade Plum Island would cost more than building the NBAF. Currently, we don't have the ability to research the effects of disease on large animals such as foot and mouth disease, animal swine fever, and Rift Valley fever at any facility in the United States, nor can we rely on international partners for our own security needs. The NBAF project has a history of broad-based support. DHS under both Bush and Obama Obama administrations and the House Appropriations Committee under both Democrat and Republican leadership have made it clear time and time again that our country needs the NBAF, and the best place for NBAF is in Manhattan, Kansas. The President's budget includes $714 million, which would complete construction, and while I prefer that this bill include that figure, Chairman Carter has responsibly included sufficient funding for this fiscal year of the $404 million. Construction on this facility has already begun, and Congress has already appropriated $127.5 million, and the state of Kansas and the city of Manhattan have already committed more than $200 million towards the project. These dollars show a strong commitment at both the federal, state, and local levels. Our nation's food supply cannot sustain another delay. We need to protect our food and our family from danger. We need to stay on the cutting edge of this research field. Our security is at risk, and delaying this project any further is not an option. We need to end BAF. I urge my colleagues to vote against this destructive amendment, and I yield back.
And a lady yields back. What purpose does the gentleman from Kansas seek recognition?
I move to strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on the topic of NBAF. And as has been mentioned by my colleague from Kansas, currently in the United States, there is not a single research facility that is able to conduct research at the biosafety level number 4. The NBAF facility being discussed here today, and that would be funded in this particular bill, will provide critical research in areas, again, that are not able to be researched currently in this country, things such as African swine fever, Rift Valley fever, Nipah virus, and Hendra virus. I repeat, we currently, as a country, without this facility, are required to outsource this particular research to other countries. As a Kansas farmer and rancher, I recognize the critical damage that would be done to our livestock industries if we do not proceed forward with the construction of NBAF. Indeed, shovels are being turned in Manhattan, Kansas today. The central utility plant that is related to this construction is proceeding underway. The state of Kansas has agreed to pay a substantial sum to assist with the cost of construction of this facility. And as was indicated earlier, the current facility that has served for over 50 years is aging at Plum Island and needs to be replaced. The Manhattan, Kansas site was selected by a panel of more than 25 scientists. DHS and USDA experts agreed this is the best place to build NBAF and provide the critical research that is necessary, not just to protect the outbreak of foreign animal diseases that might be accidental, but to protect America and our livestock industries from mass destruction, from terrorism, and numerous other attacks that could use these particular foreign animal diseases and other things. And one other connection I will note. These are diseases that in many cases not only impact the livestock industry but are zoonotic and can impact humans. This research needs to be done. We need to continue with construction in order to protect our livestock and our human health in this country, and I yield back, Madam Chairman.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from New York. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it.
Chair.
The amendment is not agreed to.
May I request a roll call vote?
The gentleman requests a roll call vote pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18. Further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from New York will be postponed. Who seeks recognition? The clerk will read.
Page 54, line 12, Domestic Nuclear Detention Office, Management and Administration, $37,353,000. Research, Development and Operations, $211,210,000 to remain available until September 30th, 2015.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Madam Chair, I ask unanimous consent that the bill through page 71, line 14 be considered as read, printed in the record, and open to amendment.